In the cold dark of space, where even starlight seemed afraid to shine, the Trinari Empire ruled without question, their warships heavy with weapons and confidence, believing themselves to be unmatched among the stars, until something strange began to happen near a region known only as the Dead Expanse, a place avoided even by pirates, a place filled with strange readings and unexplainable silences, where one day the patrol vessel Terosh 7 vanished without a sound, its crew gone, no trace left behind, no debris, no signal, as if it had simply been erased from reality itself. And while such losses were not unheard of in the Expanse, soon after, 5 more Trinari ships vanished in similar fashion, all strong, armed, and connected, and yet all disappeared without a fight or warning, which finally forced the attention of Fleet Command, who sent their prized dreadnought, the Varkalon, into the black, a massive vessel 3 kilometers long, shielded and armored like a moving fortress, meant to bring fear with its very presence. And yet even that mighty ship did not last, because as it drifted into the silent reaches of the Dead Expanse, its sensors began to flicker, picking up something strange, an anomaly that couldn't be mapped, and before its crew could understand what they were seeing, a shape emerged from nothingness, not cloaked, but truly unseen, as if it lived in a layer of space not yet known to the Trinari, a sleek black ship with no identifying marks, sharp angles that confused visual sensors, and an eerie stillness that made even trained soldiers hesitate. And then, with one sudden, precise beam of energy, the Varkalon's core split apart, not violently but with surgical precision, a single point of failure that brought down the whole beast in seconds. And before the crew's final breath escaped into the vacuum, the dark ship vanished again, leaving no trace of its presence, no message, no signal, just emptiness. And when Trinari rescue drones arrived, they found only drifting metal and scattered bodies frozen in silence. And that was when the whispers began among commanders and strategists, of something moving unseen in the dark, of a ship that could strike and vanish like a ghost. And though they didn't know its name, they began to call it the Phantom. Trying to contain the fear rising in their ranks but far away, aboard the vessel that no one could find, Commander Alara Chen stood calmly at the helm of the USS Nomad, a ship born not in a Trinari lab, but on a human world long ignored by the galaxy's empires, and her eyes studied the star map, marking the next possible targets, not to destroy for conquest, but to intervene, to stop the Trinari from spreading further, for Chen had once served in quiet roles during Earth's early explorations. But after watching the Trinari burn a peaceful outpost to cinders and broadcast it as a lesson to others, she chose a new path, one built not on treaties or politics, but silent, invisible action. For the Nomad was no ordinary warship. It was the product of human desperation, built in secret with a stealth system so advanced it didn't just avoid detection, it rewrote its presence, slipping between sensor wavelengths and folding its energy signature into the background noise of the universe. And now it hunted the hunters, striking fast, disabling or destroying only when needed, but always leaving one thing behind: the silence, the mystery, and the fear. And though the galaxy had once laughed at humanity's caution and backward nature, now they were beginning to remember the oldest truth of war. Those who go unnoticed can still be the deadliest. And somewhere, in the black sea of stars, the USS Nomad powered down its engines, vanishing once again into the darkness, while the mighty Trinari Empire began to wonder if perhaps, for the first time in centuries, they were no longer in control. The shock of losing ships no one had seen coming shook the Trinari Empire to its core, sending ripples of fear through their command halls where confidence once reigned, and Grand Marshal Taraxis, a man known for his ruthless strategies and iron will, called an emergency meeting of the High Council, the most powerful leaders of the Empire, demanding answers and swift action, for the Trinari could not afford to lose face, or fleets, in the vastness of space. The unknown attacker, which the people began to call the Phantom, was no ordinary foe, slipping through their most advanced sensors like smoke through fingers, striking without warning, leaving behind no wreckage or survivors, and no one knew where it would strike next. So Taraxis ordered the creation of the largest war battle group in recent memory, 100 ships filled with the best soldiers and the most advanced technology the Empire could muster, outfitted with new sensor arrays, anti-stealth protocols, and even experimental devices meant to detect the slightest ripple in space itself. And this armada was to sweep the dead expanse in a methodical purge, ending the nightmare once and for all. But aboard the USS Nomad, Commander Alara Chen watched all this unfold through intercepted transmissions with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the humans had crafted more than just a warship. They had created a ghost in the void, capable of moving undetected and striking with deadly precision, and the Nomad was now more than an observer. It was a weapon of justice, responding to cruelty that no other could or would stop, powered by a dark matter reactor unlike anything the galaxy had seen, and driven by a crew that refused to surrender their humanity to fear or power. When the massive Trinari fleet entered the expanse, the Nomad waited silently in the shadows, cloaked beyond the reach of even the new sensors, its crew calm but ready. And when the time came, the Nomad's tactical officer gave the signal, unleashing a coordinated strike that disabled key systems across the entire fleet in an instant. Shields dropped, engines faltered, communications fell silent, and confusion rippled through the Trinari ranks as their mighty warships lost power without explanation. And then the Nomad sent out its small, nearly invisible hunter drones, buzzing through the dark like deadly insects, quietly tearing through weak points in the enemy's defenses and sowing chaos from within. And while the Trinari scrambled to react, the Nomad moved like a shadow around them, hitting from angles no sensor could predict, crippling ships one by one, and with every attack, the legend of the ghost ship grew, fueling fear and doubt within the once unshakable Empire, as commanders whispered of an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere at once, a force they could neither capture nor defeat. And the Nomad crew knew the war had shifted from a battle of fleets to a war of wills and shadows. For the humans fought not just with technology, but with cunning, refusing to meet brute force with brute force, instead choosing disruption, precision, and speed. And as the crippled ships began to retreat, the USS Nomad melted back into the darkness of space, leaving behind a field of silence and shattered pride. And though the Trinari Empire was far from defeated, they had learned a hard lesson. The stars no longer belonged solely to them, and the warship no one observed had just shown that even the mightiest empires could fall to the unseen hand of those who dared to fight back. The Trinari Empire, once proud and untouchable, now trembled beneath the weight of unseen blows that shattered their confidence and fractured their control. And across countless worlds, governors and military leaders whispered behind closed doors, fearful of the mysterious force that had turned their great fleet to rubble without warning or mercy, their pride broken and their skies burning from the wreckage of ships that had fallen like stars in a dark sky. While back aboard the USS Nomad, Commander Alara Chen studied a troubling message intercepted from the enemy, an encrypted transmission that revealed the Trinari were massing their forces to attack a neutral system called Riven Kie, a place that harbored thousands of refugees, including many humans fleeing war-torn worlds, a cruel display of power meant to intimidate and remind all who watched that the Empire still ruled through fear. But Chen and her crew knew this was more than a show. It was bait, designed to draw the Nomad out into the open and destroy it once and for all. So they prepared with calm determination, activating Moros, the ship's advanced tactical AI, a semi-sentient program capable of analyzing and predicting enemy movements with unmatched speed, turning chaos into opportunity. And as the Trinari siege fleet surrounded Riven Kie, deploying their heavy cruisers and battleships, the Nomad struck from the shadows, firing silent pulses that disrupted shield generators and knocked out sensor arrays, confusing the enemy as entire sections of their blockade went dark one by one, while smaller attack drones slipped through gaps in their formations, disabling weapon turrets and engine rooms with precision strikes. And when reinforcements jumped into the system expecting to meet a full-scale battle, they found only wreckage, silent hulks drifting in orbit like forgotten ghosts, stripped of life and power. And the Trinari commanders' frustration grew, as they realized their might was no match for this ghost ship's tactics, a weapon built not to destroy indiscriminately but to dismantle carefully, a strategy that forced the Empire to face its own limits. And with every victory, the legend of the Nomad spread like wildfire, shaking the confidence of soldiers and citizens alike, for no one could understand how a single human warship could cripple fleets that once seemed invincible. While in the shadows of the Nomad, Elara Chen reflected on what had driven humanity to this point: a history of survival, resistance, and the refusal to be crushed by empires far larger and older than themselves, a spark that had grown into a flame fierce enough to burn through the darkness. And as the Trinari fleets retreated, nursing their wounds and shattered pride, the Nomad did not celebrate but remained vigilant, for it knew the war was far from over, and the skies would burn again. But this time, it would be a warning to all who dared threaten freedom, that humanity, though once unseen and underestimated, had risen to claim its place among the stars. The long months of relentless struggle and silent strikes had worn down the mighty Trinari Empire in ways no battle fleet ever could, and in the grand halls of Trinar Prime, where once pride and arrogance had ruled, a new kind of fear began to spread, quiet, creeping, and far more dangerous than any weapon. As whispers of rebellion stirred among the generals and politicians, questioning not only the strength of their fleet but the very purpose of the war, while across the Empire's vast communication networks, a mysterious message suddenly appeared, broadcast to every corner of Trinari space, not as a demand or threat, but as a chilling record of an encounter few had witnessed and even fewer could explain. It showed the USS Nomad decloaking high above a recently conquered Trinari base, a place still smoking from battle. Yet the humans aboard did not destroy or conquer, but instead swiftly moved through the shattered command centers, releasing prisoners and overriding control systems, effectively emptying the base and vanishing again before any reinforcements could arrive. And the final moment of the transmission revealed a simple line of text displayed in flawless Trinari glyphs, chilling in its clarity: "We are not your prey. We are the silence before your collapse." Words that spread like wildfire through the Trinari ranks and across civilian populations, shaking confidence and stirring hope in equal measure, as many began to wonder if the seemingly unstoppable Empire might indeed be facing an end, while behind closed doors, Emperor Velkar, once untouchable and resolute, found himself confronted by his most trusted advisors, urging a reconsideration of their brutal campaign. Fearful that continued war would only bring ruin and rebellion, but the stubborn core of the military resisted, unwilling to admit defeat or negotiate with what they called the human invaders, until the pressure became too great and a secret envoy was dispatched to make contact with the Nomad, sending a quiet message into the void that simply said, "We seek peace," a phrase that rippled shock through Elara Chen and her crew aboard the USS Nomad as they debated the sincerity of this sudden offer. And after days of careful deliberation, Chen decided that peace was possible, but only on their terms, refusing to be pawns in the Empire's game or to trust old enemies too easily. So the Nomad responded with a single message of its own: "We will talk, but the war is over when justice is served." And soon after, the galaxy witnessed an unprecedented event. A Trinari governor, a man once known for his iron-fisted rule, was seen signing a treaty aboard a neutral station, under the watchful eyes of Nomad crew members, a moment broadcast live across several star systems, not as a surrender, but as an uneasy truce that signaled the beginning of a new era. Yet the peace was fragile, and within the Empire, many factions still plotted to regain power through force, unwilling to accept human terms or to acknowledge that their dominance was broken, while the Nomad quietly continued its patrols, ensuring that no resurgence of aggression could grow unchecked, all the while preparing for new threats that lurked in the shadows of the galaxy. As Earth had built more ships like the Nomad, vessels designed not for conquest, but to protect and to remind every empire that the balance of power had shifted, and though the Trinari Empire had bent, it had not yet broken, and with every treaty signed, every prisoner freed, and every act of silent justice carried out by the ghost ship that no one observed until it crushed an empire, the question remained: what would humanity do next in this vast, uncertain darkness, where empires rise and fall like stars, and where only the unseen hand might tip the scales forever? After months of uneasy peace, the galaxy seemed to breathe for the first time in years. But beneath that fragile calm, darkness was stirring in places no one watched closely enough. The Trinari Empire, battered and humbled, had retreated to rebuild their shattered fleets and reassess their place in a universe that no longer bowed without question. Yet beyond the borders of their known space, rumors began to spread. Whispers of a new power rising in the Andros Nebula, a brutal force that took worlds without mercy, enslaving entire populations and crushing resistance with ruthless efficiency. The USS Nomad, the warship that had once struck fear into the heart of the Trinari and changed the course of galactic history, was quietly reactivated after a long period of downtime. Commander Alara Chen, who had fought hard to bring the Nomad's mission beyond mere survival into a fight for justice and balance, stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the endless blackness ahead. Orders had come to return to Earth, to decommission the ship and its systems, but Chen refused. The galaxy was no safer now than it had been before the Nomad first appeared. She knew there were other empires, other dark ambitions ready to rise. The Nomad's crew, loyal and battle-hardened, shared her conviction. They would not let the sacrifices made be in vain. They prepped the ship, upgrading its cloaking fields and weapons, readying Moros, the tactical AI, to face threats no one else could meet. Intelligence reports confirmed the rise of the Andros regime, and the USS Nomad was tasked to investigate and, if necessary, intervene quietly before the new empire could spread further and threaten innocent worlds. As the Nomad slipped through the folds of space towards the Andros Nebula, Chen reflected on the long journey from being unseen observers to becoming the galaxy's silent protectors, carrying the weight of humanity's promise that no empire could rise without challenge. The darkness around Andros was thick, with twisted nebula gases hiding fleets that moved like shadows, but the Nomad's sensors, guided by Moros, pierced through with precision. The crew watched in silence as the data streamed in, entire star systems enslaved, infrastructure destroyed, cries for help buried beneath layers of control and fear. The Nomad could not stand by. When they made contact, it was with calculated strikes designed to cripple the Andros supply lines and communications without endangering innocent lives. The shadowy warship moved like a ghost again, striking, disappearing, and always watching. But the Andros regime was no fool. They had learned from the Trinari's failures. Their commanders deployed relentless hunters to find the Nomad, turning the hunt into a deadly game of cat and mouse across star systems drenched in silence and tension. Chen's crew faced relentless pressure, knowing a single mistake could mean the end of the Nomad and a return to galactic darkness. Each battle was a test of skill, of strategy, and of sheer will, and the humans learned to trust not only their technology, but each other. Yet, amid the fighting, Chen found moments to remind her crew why they fought: for freedom, for justice, and for the right of every being in the galaxy to live without fear. As the Nomad's strikes began to break the Andros grip on key worlds, whispers spread among rebels and oppressed citizens who dared to hope that the Shadow Empire was not invincible. Messages reached the Nomad, secret calls for aid, plans for uprising, and a growing resistance fueled by the silent promise of humanity's ghost ship. The Nomad became more than a warship. It was a symbol of hope, the shadow crown that challenged tyrants and reminded the galaxy that even in the deepest darkness a spark could ignite change. But Chen knew this fight would not end soon. The Andros regime was vast and brutal, willing to sacrifice anything to maintain power, and the Nomad's crew prepared for long, difficult battles ahead, knowing that their war was no longer about survival. It was about shaping the future of a galaxy where no empire could rise unchallenged. With every jump through the stars, the USS Nomad moved closer to its destiny, the warship no one observed until it crushed an empire now watching. Again, ready to strike wherever darkness grew, because the balance had shifted forever, and the galaxy would never be the same.